sidekick going. Undercover, no, he ain't gonna show it. He thinks that I don't know it. Never let it slip, no, I ain't gonna blow it. No, no. He comes up empty-handed, all right, our last place he landed. There goes my mind, it travels. Watch my map, I plan unravel. Oh, oh. He thinks I'm blind, he's lost his mind, and oh, oh. I'm the victim, oh, but not this time tonight. All of my demons come out to play. Just can't believe what happened. Bittersweet still drips down my face. The jury read crime and passion. Crime and passion. Here he comes now, sneaking down the sidewalk. He's thinking that I ain't home. Hiding in the shadow, got my finger on the trigger. Oh no, he isn't alone. Put her down, put him in his place. Never will forget the look on his face. He knew I had one more round. Point blank range, I took him down. And oh, he thinks I'm blind, he's lost his mind. And oh, I'm the victim, oh, but not this time tonight. All of my demons come out to play. Just can't believe what happened. The bittersweet still drips down my face. When the jury read crime and passion. Crime and passion. Hey Mike, how's it going? I appreciate you spinning my song for me. This latest song here, Crime of Passion, didn't come very easy for me. I thought it was complete 2 weeks ago, but when I brought it home and listened to it, I thought to myself, I knew I could write better than that. So I rewrote the whole thing, and Thursday brought it back to my producer, and we nailed it. I pretty much finished it then, and I just released it today, this morning. You can find me on YouTube. That's the best way to find me is on YouTube. I am out of Tampa, Florida. And again, I appreciate you spinning our songs, and you have a great day.
Well, thank you for joining me. I'm Michael Tobin, your lookout guy on the Lookout Guy podcast. That was Tracy Bickford, Crime of Passion. Wow, what an awesome song. And as Tracy says, go to YouTube and type in her name, Tracy Bickford, with a C-K, B-I-C-K-F-O-R-D on YouTube. And, following is going to be another song by Tracy Bickford and Imran Ahmed from Project X. It's called Rattle or Higher Above. And you could also go to Imran Ahmed, A-H-M-E-D is how you spell his last name. You could find the song and videos on both of their websites, Imran Ahmed, Project X, and Tracy Bickford for Higher Above. But the song Crime of Passion, I've been anticipating the completion of that, and as she said, it was released finally Tuesday the 29th of March. And it seems that that song is a sequel to a 2020 release of Tracy Bickford, a country indie artist from Florida, Tampa Bay. And I guess this episode of The Lookout Guy is kind of like a coast to coast, because I've got another couple songs from my good friend here in San Diego, Hot Rod Jerry DeMink. He builds hot rods, and he also trains people in guitar. He's a guitar teacher, so he's got a good list of students. So if you want to look up Jerry DeMink, just go to Facebook, look up Jerry DeMink, and you can check out his music. And if you're local in the area, you can, if you want to learn guitar, look him up. So, got a couple songs from Jerry DeMink, Chicago Blues and Ghost Riders. I saw him last night, Thursday. Today's Friday. A miracle of miracles. I've got today off. Wow. Got off early yesterday, and man, I work so hard and get pretty tired. But I've been able to come to you live on a weekly basis, which is pretty darn good for a podcaster. And you know my hopes and my dreams to be live podcasting anytime and anywhere. And, you know, there's a thing called 5-year plans. What's your 5-year plan? To be an entrepreneur. But I've got a 5-year plan. And after about 5 years, I think I will be able to be on the road podcasting on the spot anywhere, because you know my background is pretty much disaster response, street preaching, ministering to the homeless, and I've done a little preaching in churches here and there, and I'm open for engagements for that. But before getting into Higher Above, as promised on my social media site, I was going to do a second part to what I mentioned in one of my previous podcasts about the famous Oscars slap. You know, I had the TV turned on, but before it came on, I began my podcast titled Instead of the Oscars. That was my episode title, Instead of the Oscars, and it was on Oscars night. And I told people, you know, you should have listened to it. But, you know, I get so many downloads. I go to the statistics, and there's like all kinds of downloads. And it'll take some time if I want to gather my statistics and make a cover letter and try to get sponsors and things like that. But just pray about that. To be a full-time podcaster, it takes sponsorship of some kind. And I don't like those canned commercials that podcast platforms offer. And right at the beginning, or some of them in the middle of when you're talking, all of a sudden a commercial will pop up. And it's kind of annoying the way canned commercials are done on platforms. But two things I promised. I was going to mention again about the famous Oscar slap. And my thing, and the second thing is Ukraine. And first, Ukraine, for those of us who are praying for the people of Ukraine, contributing to different ministries and organizations, that is an awesome thing. But more specifically, those of us who are praying for them, it does help to know how to pray as we ought, as the Bible says. You know, and that passage, it's talking about the gifts of the Spirit and praying in the Spirit. When you pray in the Spirit, the Holy Spirit prays through you when we don't know how to pray for as we ought, we can depend on the Holy Spirit to just guide our desires. It's pretty difficult, kind of a difficult thing to explain. But when you pray for something, you don't always know the whole story, but the Lord will guide you through His Holy Spirit on for the particular subject that you're praying for. And unfortunately, most of us who are praying, we don't know enough of the story between Ukraine and Russia to pray with an awareness, a specific awarenesses. So I want to fill you in on something that from the very beginning, late February, when the Russian invasion started, I saw a comment on a radio station news post from a Ukrainian individual, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do a web search on this. I'm going to wait to see how long it takes for some independent news source, which still I haven't run into, how long it's going to take for an independent news source to bring this up. But what is this that hasn't been brought up? That I guarantee you 99% who are listening don't know this, but beginning in 2014, when the Crimea secession of sorts began, Crimea right on the coast, a good chunk of Ukraine on the coast of the Black Sea, the northern coast of it, the northeastern coast of it, was taken over by Russia. But that began Ukraine indiscriminately shelling a couple of provinces on the eastern border of Ukraine, where the majority of citizens are Russian, and they identify as Russian because they were Russian during the USSR days, the communist USSR. And their forefathers, or whatever you want to call it, were Russian. But when you want to secede from a country because of what nationality you identify with, you don't get to say, okay, we're going to take this land and make it become part of another nation. That does not cut ice, so to speak. So they can't do that. But as far as praying is concerned, that is what is behind the eastern borders of Ukraine. Supposedly, Putin is rescuing the Russian citizens who now recently have all been given passports and citizenship of Russia, so they actually carry dual citizenship, which is a pretty common thing in a lot of border areas, border boundaries in many countries, dual citizenship. So that may be the end game, is that those people will be left alone, but it will still be part of Ukraine. And who knows what's going to happen to Crimea? Will Ukraine get control of Crimea back? We'll see. But these are the things that we need to pray for. And sadly and unfortunately, children and civilians are dying as a result of shelling of both sides. It's a horrible thing. It's a pretty difficult thing to talk about, but that is war, and we could philosophize about war and everything like that, but it really does no good. As believers, now you know how to pray more for as we ought to, with a little bit more awareness of what's going on. So we need to pray for peace on the borders of Ukraine, a viable solution and a good solution that Ukraine can get back on with their life, and they can work more towards being a nation, an autonomous nation, and that the two countries that border each other, Russia and Ukraine, can get along. And who knows how long. A lot of people are talking about Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, about the north, the far north, and Gog and Magog coming to the south, and eventually ending up in the last war, the war of Armageddon in Israel. We don't know how many more years, decades, or maybe even a day Jesus could come back. But in the meantime, that is how we can pray more effectually and fervently. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. So that's my final thing about Ukraine until some progress begins to be made. But until then, our prayers are making progress. We may not see it, but we are to just continue in prayer for that. So now the slap. If you listen to my previous podcast, I think it's the second to the last one. It's an indie world. Not an indie world, but instead of the Oscars, I mentioned that actually I haven't got a chance to mention it since then, because I was not aware of what actually happened at the Oscars. I didn't see it when it happened, but I did a search since then, and I believe it is a publicity stunt, either between Chris Rock and Will Smith, or somebody else sold them a bill of goods of, hey, let's do this. And ultimately, Will Smith I believe he's going to leave the entertainment industry, and why not? He may be so many good things that he has quoted in the past. It tells us that it is uncharacteristic for Will Smith to just walk up and do something like that, and that is genuine and real, especially because of Denzel Washington, who is a spiritual guy, a Christian, born-again believer, sitting next to him. Why? It does not make sense. One, because of his character, and another, why would you go and humiliate such a reputable person, a friend, such as Denzel Washington and his wife and all of his friends in Hollywood? Why would you do something like that at a time like that? It doesn't make sense. What makes more, and plus when you freeze frame, you can see Chris Rock put his hands behind his back, grab his wrist, and lean forward, and it's in a stance to be stable. When Will Smith approached him, you would think that normally you would reach your hands out and say, hey man, what's going on, or whatever, but he braced himself and he knew what was coming. And there's a photo that is not available anymore, but the day after it, a guy at my work showed it to me. It was him squinting his eyes, leaning forward, and bracing himself before Will Smith even said a word. That photo is not available. The only photos are of the action and after the action. So this tells me that somebody knows, and you know how things get scrubbed from the internet and all that other stuff. It's a publicity of sorts. Either Will Smith and Chris Rock are going to have to live with this stunt for the rest of their lives or careers, or it will maybe even come out. But about 30 years ago, there was another comedian, I can't remember his name. He's famous from the show with Vinny, what's his name? Vinny something. A little short Italian guy, the guy that played the Penguin on Batman. Anyhow, it was a comedian from the show Taxi, the TV situation comedy Taxi. Well, he was on the David Letterman show, and then there was a World Wrestling Federation wrestler who got up and said, well, what kind of a man are you? And he slapped him. It wasn't until, I don't know, 20 years later, 10 years later, after the comedian had passed away, that this wrestler admitted that it was a publicity stunt. So that was a very shocking and horrible thing that they had to live with for years until the passing away of that comedian. And the wrestler finally admitted that it was a publicity stunt. So it was already done, and possibly Will Smith and Chris Rock got together and said, hey, let's do this again. Who knows? But of the body language and everything else, the nature of the reason for slapping and the nature of walking up, the people surrounding Will Smith and him just suddenly, in the middle of laughing at a joke, it seemed like he was too late for the timing for him to appear angry in front of the camera. He was still laughing, and suddenly, they blame it on his wife that she gave him a death stare because it was an insult. When you really think of it, even both of them went from laughing, and she would follow the cue of knowing of a publicity stunt before Will Smith did. Will Smith was a day late and $1 short on realizing that, here came the insult. And he stuck to plan, walked up there and did the fake slap. It just doesn't make sense. And I believe that we're going to, I'm not alone, but I believe we're going to see it. It's going to come to light. But sometimes these are a blessing in disguise. It's to use a publicity stunt such as that would be a vehicle for Will Smith leaving the entertainment industry. And Chris Rock, his tickets went from $47 a show to over $1,000 a show now, and he's becoming a lot more financially successful in his concerts. You could go to Las Vegas and see something for $57 or $105 for somebody who is very, very reputable. But to go from $47 to over $1,000 a show booked, his whole tour is now booked. It's pretty amazing. So sometimes things are a blessing in disguise, and sometimes you have to live with what you did. How can they come out and say this was a stunt? Who knows? In Hollywood, pretty much anything. And then, of course, you look at the ratings of the Oscars, been steadily declining. Last year was the worst ratings in the almost 100-year history of the Oscars. So that's my take on that. I got through this. I covered both things, Ukraine and the Oscars slap. So now let's go to Tracy Bickford. Hope I didn't bore you guys. The song Higher Above, and I urge you to go to YouTube and look for the song Rattlesnake. If you think that Crime of Passion was a scary song, listen to Rattlesnake. And so I believe that this new song that was just released last Tuesday on the 29th of March 2022 by Tracy Bickford, it was kind of a sequel to Rattlesnake. So look up Rattlesnake, but coming up is their another brand new release from a couple of months ago, Higher Above, with Imran Ahmed. And that will be followed by my good friend Jerry D'Amica. I was finally able to see him last night, Thursday, because I got off early from work for one, and I still would have been able to make it if I would have worked the whole day. But it's pretty difficult to go to a Tuesday, a Thursday concert, But after about a year, I haven't seen him. But look up Jerry D'Amica also. And Higher Above will be followed by my good friend Jerry DeMink with a Chicago blues song, and that followed by the Hot Rod Jerry DeMink Band's version of Ghost Riders. On the Lookout Guy. I'm Michael Tobin, your host for The Lookout Guy on the Lookout Guy podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Like in a dream, it burns through your veins and you can feel it. The wind is insane, yeah, it's as real as it gets. If you see the galaxy, that's you and me, 'cause we keep getting higher above. That's what keeps happening to our love. There ain't no stopping it. Your heart is my destiny. You are the rest of me. There ain't no way, no one could ever keep us apart, not even in our darkest days. So come what may, don't get close to the fire. All of our desires gonna melt you away. It burns through your veins and you can feel it. A hurricane, yeah, it's as real as it gets. If you see the galaxy, that's you and me, 'cause we keep getting higher above. That's what keeps happening to our love. There ain't no stopping it. Your heart is my destiny, 'cause you are the rest of me. Higher above, that's what keeps happening to our love. There ain't no stopping it. Your heart is my destiny. You are the rest of me.
But I got to spend some time in Chicago playing blues, learning blues in Chicago, and I learned something about Chicago kind of blues. You know, Chicago is a very urban city, right? It's not just some little Midwest town past the corn pastures and cow patties out that way somewhere. It's like a full metropolis city. It's like LA in the Midwest, okay? It's a big, thriving city. So when I learned about blues in Chicago, they like the blues kind of funky. So if it's all right with you, can this skinny white boy from San Diego, California play some funky style kind of Chicago blues? Can I do it? Is it all right? Is it all right? Okay, check it out. So can I just someday, when you look at it, do dress. Dad's that scuffling, doing his best. Still call the blues. Now, when you look at it, still call the blues. Any way you look at it, baby, it is still cold. I said it is still cold. Well, it is still cold. I said it is still And it's still called the blues.
All right. Yeah, that dude in the background. Get away from my barbecue. That was a bass player. And I just want to say a few more good words about my friend Jerry DeMink. But first, the drummer. Kudos to the drummer. He was a guest drummer. Jerry needed another drummer. His other normal drummer was predisposed. You know how bands are. But the Hot Rod Jerry DeMink band is one of those project bands. They don't have the same people for all these decades and everything. But as far back as I remember meeting Jerry DeMink, probably about 20 years ago, his longest time drummer is Danny Wasson, and I call him Animal. You know, the drummer on the Muppets. He's a real wild and crazy dude. Phenomenal drummer, but everybody who has played with Jerry DeMink have all been phenomenal. But the bassist is Matt Gorman, and last night's drummer, Paul Cambaro. He adapted to every song and to Jerry's conducting skills, you know, just adapted to every song. And if you're local in the area, you know of Jerry DeMink, look him up if you don't know him. He went from Muddy Waters, Johnny Cash, Buck Owens, Carlos Santana, all kinds of stuff. And enough can't really be said about the performance that the Hot Rod Jerry DeMink band does. But the drummer was just phenomenal. I mean, they did some amazing feats between the bass, the drums, vocals, and the lead guitar. It's awesome. So kudos to the band. And Jerry DeMink, he's one of those guys that there isn't anything that he wouldn't do for a friend. He showed up when I was doing homeless ministry in downtown San Diego, to downtown San Diego's longest continuous running homeless ministry since the 1950s. And ultimately, because of these times we're in, just recently, a couple of months ago, they had to shut down because they didn't have $10 million to renovate their property. They own half a block, and the staff all had to find somewhere else to move to, or to minister at, or to go to. And that's a sad situation. So pray for the staff of the former staff of God's Extended Hand Ministry. Lots of phenomenal Christian workers, you know. Some of them are licensed, ordained, and not ordained. They're just laborers of love. Pray for that ministry. Pray for those who had to leave. Pray for the homeless wherever you're at. But he showed up a couple times. I think he actually may have even showed up 3 times within the past 30 years that I've been ministering with God's Extended Hand. And awesome. So kudos to Jerry DeMink for that. He does worship at his church right nearby where I live also. And but anyhow, what an awesome band. And along with Jerry showed up the last 2 times that he showed up with one of his other drummers, Chris Giorgio. Awesome guy. So I didn't want to end this episode without saying a few more good words for my good friend Hot Rod Jerry DeMink and my good friend Tracy Bickford and Imran Ahmed. This has been a coast-to-coast episode on The Lookout Guy, from Florida to California, country, blues, and as well as the song Higher Above, which was a collaboration with Imran Ahmed, who hails all the way from Pakistan. He is like the Eddie Van Halen of Pakistan. I kid you not. And you know, for the longest time, it's been bugging me because of the style that Imran Ahmed does with his guitar. It's like, who does he remind me of? And I'm trying to think of all these names, but Joe Satriani, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Joe Satriani is who the way Imran Ahmed plays guitar reminds me of. So look up Joe Satriani. He's out there performing and everything. But look up Imran Ahmed Project X on YouTube. Look up Tracy Bickford on YouTube, and look up Jerry DeMeek. Facebook and YouTube for all of them. All right, you guys, God bless you. Thank you for joining me on the Lookout Guy podcast. I'm Michael Tobin, your Lookout Guy. Until next time.